Today we're investigating Infiltration, the banned Street Fighter player who's been barred from competition since allegations of domestic violence, tournament rigging, and racism arose in quick succession starting over half a decade ago. Well, I'd love to jump right in and tell you all about him. All I can think about is busting out of here. How'd I end up with 4 walls, a jumpsuit, and 3 square meals a day? Well, let's just say the DA's a juryman and I'm not too fond of impromptu foot massages.
Hey, keep it down in there.
You wear open-toe shoes once, and all of a sudden I'm the bad guy for flash kicking the creep. It's ridiculous. Oh, sorry. I forgot I had on my Raycon's active noise cancellation so I could listen to Death Note OST while monologuing.
Awareness mode on.
Hey, how'd you get those? That's contraband.
No, I just said they're Raycon's everyday earbuds. But it doesn't matter because Raycon starts at just half the price as other premium audio brands.
Wise guy, huh? Give me those. You'll get these back in 24 hours when you learn some respect.
Fine by me. They have a 32-hour battery life and a wireless charging case in my favorite color. Just 10 minutes in this bad boy, and I'll be set listening to Dave Blunt's on repeat for an hour and a half. I even got this neat protective carrying case for when I need to stash them. I got it perfect every other time. For when I need to stash them. I even got this neat protective carrying case for when I need to stash them.
Mine's concrete to match the walls, but they have galaxy, blue water, purple clouds, and yellow sunset. Good luck finding that at an affordable price.
Who stuck these in for you? Was it Jerry? You running with Miguel's gang again?
That's what you don't get, John. I'm always 2 steps ahead. They're so comfortable and discreet, I've been wearing these suckers since I got here.
Oh, are you little? You want to spend your entire week in the hole? Detective? Is that it?
No amount of isolation can outweigh the prison that is my decaying flesh grappling with my own mortality, John. Also, tomorrow's Taco Tuesday. Don't do me like that.
Yeah, I do like Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. Look, I'll cut you in on the action, okay? Just relax. All you gotta do is go to buyraycon.com/technicals to get 15% off site-wide.
Oh, sorry. Could you say that one more time? The noise cancellation on these things is no joke.
Yeah, I know. No problem. I said you'll get 15% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/technicals. You'll get a nice deal, and I can finally bail myself out of here. Now, can I please get my earbuds back? I can't go to sleep without a 3-hour lore video.
Well, tough luck. Looks like I'm getting the 5-finger discount. Free 99. Oh, and it looks like you got a visitor.
Who is it?
Get in that chair.
Oh, it's you again. Let's start it from the top. Infiltration was a Korean fighting game superstar with 6 EVO championship titles during the height of his career, but now has gone from fierce competitor to feared criminal in the eyes of the public. And all it took was 3 strikes over 6 years to do it. The first came right before the Capcom Pro Tour event at the Tokyo Game Show in 2018, where news of damaging allegations reached Infiltration through his manager David Wu at Panda Global. Materials containing malicious content about you are being spread throughout online communities around the world. You must quickly hurry back to Korea and resolve this matter. Panda Global would then announce Infiltration's withdrawal from the event in lieu of an investigation into the claims made by the Redditor criminal Siam-Woo Lee, which is Infiltration's real name, minus the criminal part, obviously. For the Western audience, this was the first time hearing of such a thing, but these whispers had been circling Korean and Japanese forums months prior. The writing chiefly pertained to domestic violence, fraud, and destruction of property. More specifically, the user would claim that Infiltration, quote, snatched his ex-wife's phone, choked her to near death, and dragged her out of the apartment. They also claim that after his ex-wife won the criminal case that he hid his assets under someone else's name in order to not pay the compensation of 20 million won, or 20,000 USD, from the criminal trial. Committed fraud against his sponsor Razer by fabricating expense reports, and that he came to her apartment again after the initial restraining order ended and started destroying her stuff and beat her again. Provided alongside these claims are 2 case numbers in Korean, a partial audio transcript of the domestic dispute, and a tweet from his ex-wife that has since been deleted to avoid legal retaliation, where she mentions that she won the criminal case and was starting the civil case for compensation. Unlike in the United States, South Korea actually has laws against defaming people even if the defamation in question is the truth. Seems kind of fucked up, but that's a story for another day. This particular case has been the subject of discussion in the Street Fighter community for years, subsequently resulting in a considerable amount of misinformation or outright confusion. Over the past few months, I've taken it upon myself to investigate and trim the fat so you don't have to. But thankfully, I didn't have to start from scratch. 2 months after the suspension from Capcom events by Panda Global, a comprehensive summary of their findings would be posted to Twitter, YouTube, and across all of the relevant subreddits.
Recently, an anonymous group made a series of allegations against our Street Fighter player Infiltration, both through private emails and Reddit.
In it, they state that information had been submitted by Infiltration upon request, and that the anonymous leaker sent an audio recording of the alleged beating via email, but that according to their Korean legal counsel, disseminating this would be a bad idea. That's to be expected, but unfortunately, it also means it wasn't possible for me to get my hands on. They also stated that all translated documents had been sent to both Panda Global and Capcom for review. After the introduction, we're given a complete timeline of events and a rebuttal to the claims made in both the original Reddit post and the email sent to Panda Global's team. Now this is where things start to get a little confusing. I could read you their summary like everyone else and call it a day, but that wouldn't sit quite right with me. After all, who would blindly trust an esports organization to give them an accurate criminal investigation into one of their own players? So I did what any real detective would do. I set out to solve this mystery on my own. Since July, I've been in close contact with Infiltration. However, he would not return my messages starting in August. Just when I thought he might have been ghosting me, I learned that this was due to the production of his own video where he'd outlined the details of his case in far more depth than had ever been accessible to the public. In it, he'd reveal text messages with his ex-wife, court documents across several cases, and even the identity of the Reddit user Criminal Xianwu Li, who released the audio transcripts, case numbers, and surprisingly had access to the actual audio recording of the domestic dispute. With the contents of this 42-minute video, Panda Global's summary, and my own independent investigation, I could finally answer the questions on everyone's mind since September of 2018. So without further ado, let's go through them one by one. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Yes, Infiltration was charged with violence against his wife. That is an indisputable fact, and the charge is well documented. The audio transcript provided by the Redditor of the altercation on October 22nd, 2017 is also pretty damning. To give you a few excerpts from the leaks: "Give me what's mine," referring to her phone. "Hey, if you use force, it's at your disadvantage, so just stay still. Ah, don't do it. Don't choke. Blank, it really hurts, so don't do it. Dude, assess your situation carefully. You fucking want to get your bones broken right now." Well, case closed. In a perfect world, sure. But what I really wanted to know was, why did he only get a minor fine of 700,000 won, or $630 at the time, out of a maximum of 5 million won, or 4,500, and only got charged with a crime of violence if he choked her to near death, beat her in front of the cops, and there's a mountain of evidence to prove it? Now that might sound confusing from a Western view of the legal system, but because Korea has so many problems with domestic violence, the law is actually far more specific when it comes to these cases. Let me show you what I mean. If you read the summary report of the verdict, Infiltration was charged with violating Article 260 of the Criminal Act in the Republic of Korea. What's even more interesting is that in this article, if the victim chooses not to prosecute the crime, the whole thing gets thrown away, which is something she actually offered to do on November 2nd in DMs, by stating that she wouldn't go to the detective's office and instead would reconcile through family court. But, and this is very important, the victim cannot object to prosecution in cases involving bodily injury, which are entirely different articles and charges. Meaning that for Article 260, you don't actually need to harm someone to be charged, but the threat of violence, or simple physical contact, could be designated as simple violence, as opposed to special violence, which would involve a weapon, or violence that actually results in bodily injury. For example, anything resulting in scars, bruises, broken bones or teeth, loss of consciousness, hair loss, etc. That would fall under Article 257, inflicting bodily injury on other or on lineal ascendant, which is like a grandparent or parent. A person who inflicts a bodily injury upon another shall be punished by imprisonment for not more than 7 years, or suspension of qualifications for not more than 10 years, or by a fine not exceeding 10 million won. That would already double the fines from before. That's just for bodily injury. The more severe charge is Article 258 for aggravated bodily injury. A person who inflicts bodily injury upon another, thereby endangering one's life, shall be punished by imprisonment for at least 1 year up to 10 years. There's not even a possibility for a fine here. And this is the exact article, given the Redditor's explanation, if accurate, that I'd assumed he'd be charged with. If he was in fact beating her for an hour, dragged her in front of the condo security and neighbors, continued beating her into attempted unconsciousness in front of police, and she won the criminal case with the proofs provided, like the email sent to Panda Global suggests, there's no fucking way they wouldn't have charged him with bodily injury. This dude must be tripping off Fent if he thinks I'm gonna believe that's what happened. However, in a shocking turn of events, she was diagnosed with contusions, which are bruises for the uninformed, across her body, and inflammation to the wrist a day later. Yet this didn't elevate the charges. Why? Well, surprisingly, according to her attorney, they never actually submitted this as evidence to the police, nor did they submit the recording. That seems a little odd to me. These people are either unknowingly celebrating a verdict they don't believe in, the Korean police are incompetent and really did give Infiltration a plea deal in spite of her injuries, or someone is not being entirely truthful, resulting in lesser charges. Yeah, I personally always consider lying to be far more plausible and exciting, but even that may still be up for debate. Who knows? If you couldn't tell, I'm not Korean, and therefore lack the home field advantage. But let's see what Panda Global had to say first. Look, Panda Global had access to the complete translated transcript from their incident report. Turns out, the excerpts from our leaker started 5 pages after the beginning of the recording and is only 7 random pages out of a total of 22. Panda Global highlighted 3 interactions they found the most important. The source of their conflict being a divorce, both Infiltration and his ex-wife threatening to report each other for assault. You report, I report. Let each of us report. Dude, you're reporting me for assaulting someone when I never did. Fucking dick. You didn't do anything. Isn't this assault? If I report you, you report me too. I told you I would report you. You report me too. If you report me, I will report you too. And blank, I will go to the police no matter what. And another line from Infiltration that stated, how can you accuse me of assault if there was no violence? Panda Global goes on to illuminate how Miss X told him she would call them back after the police left the first time peacefully without intervention and accuse him of assault. There's even a part where she says if she got her phone back, she wouldn't report it to the police. This followed a heated argument over the purchase of a dishwasher when his ex-wife used his credit card without his consent.
그러던 도중 제 핸드폰에 김양리가 저에게 생활비 명목으로 받은 신용카드로 32만 원 상당의 식기세척기를 구매했다는 내용이 보이더군요.
내 지금 경제 상황이 어떤지 알아요? 내가 나오기 전에 말했죠. 320만 원이 통장에 있는데 400만 원 이상의 카드값으로 나왔다. 그리고 대비 그 다음 날에 30몇만 원짜리 식기세척기랑 비닐을 구매했어요.
32만 원짜리.
Infiltration had been struggling with money and their impending divorce was already on the table at the time. The sudden notification of purchase would be the spark that light his fuse. Up until now, Panda Global, Capcom, and the relevant parties have been the only ones able to view the legal documents in full. Take a wild guess who happens to have a 662-page PDF with all of that and more. This guy. You really thought I didn't have all the answers? That was a test. And I'm sorry to tell you, but you got a B- for bitch. I just made that part up. My immediate thought after only reading Panda Global's summary was that with the threats of accusations and the premeditated nature of the audio recording, it would be impossible to rule out any foul play. Anyone could just say out loud what's happening, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. I know I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate here, but there's also a small part of me that wonders how there's 22 pages of transcribed dialogue from someone yelling about how they're being choked. From my experience, you can't really talk when your trachea is being crushed. However, that's not to say that what the evidence does show isn't a serious problem. There's threats and intimidation like, I'm gonna kill you, or should I strangle you until you stop crying? That even if he didn't actually do it, and it was just yelling in the heat of the moment, it would rightfully constitute intervention on its own. It's pretty worrisome. If not the police, then certainly some lengthy marriage counseling. Of course, there's also a language and cultural barrier here, so I can't confidently discern their argument anyways. I can't trust Google Translate for everything, which I'll admit has made this case quite the headache. But if we take into account the results of the criminal case, the ex-wife's medical report, the full audio transcript, and the rebuttals from each party's legal team, I think the most likely scenario is that Infiltration was afraid she would report him for assault, and use him breaking stuff like his keyboard in their previous argument over finances and divorce as her primary evidence. When she called the police, he quickly snatched her phone, hung up, and attempted to erase anything incriminating. Utilizing his superior strength, he restrained her wrist for a prolonged period, resulting in the reported inflammation. And the desperate struggle to retrieve her phone prompted further preventative measures such as pressing down on her or the contentious chokehold. Although this may have been in response to her allegedly scratching and hitting him, which is the story he tells, but even pieces of the transcript illustrate this potential scenario. Like on page 9 where he says, "Hey look, you're suddenly assaulting me. Hey, think about it. Calm down and think about it." She responds, "You're assaulting me right now. You too. Report me now. Report me. Let's each report." This would explain the miscellaneous bruises. However, if he were to have choked her to the degree exclaimed in this transcript or in the public allegations, it would have materialized in either the medical report or a more severe criminal charge. But the lack of such evidence plainly refutes this, seeing as how her throat isn't even mentioned from the hospital visit a day later, and he got the lightest charge possible. That would mean that while injuries did occur, this was caused by grappling over his ex-wife's phone, and not a torturous exhibition of physical violence as others have insinuated. When someone says a beating occurred, you normally assume at least a single punch or kick was thrown. The literal definition is an act of striking with repeated blows so as to injure or damage. I wouldn't necessarily call holding and restraining someone a beating, but obviously any kind of unwanted physical contact and even spitting on someone can legally be categorized as an assault. That's accurate. I know I'm already in a jumpsuit, but I hope it's very clear that while I make these distinctions based on available evidence and definitions, I know, crazy concept, it doesn't mean I agree with what happened. I just need to know what did first. That's what investigating is. It was in the title when you clicked on the video. And our little Redditor friend isn't making my job any easier.
All right, that's it.
Get off of me! Get off of me!
Get out of here.
While the violence charge was certainly complicated to navigate, I noticed the author was starting to get sloppy. He claimed Infiltration beat his ex-wife and broke her stuff even before the situation outlined in the criminal case from October, because he lost at EVO. This is not substantiated nor elaborated upon at any point. However, there is a case I found that he might be confusing it with.
저와 김양리는 2017년 6월에 말다툼이 있었습니다. 이 다툼 도중 화가 난 김양리가 에보라는 대회에서의 우승 트로피 2개를 바닥에 던져 부셔버렸던 일이 있었죠.
Text messages dated June 13th show his ex-wife apologizing after he says she accidentally did something wrong and that he's sending her photos and videos of the trophy that she broke. His version of events is that he knocked some stuff off a shelf and in retaliation, she broke the trophy. However, in her counterclaim for the defamation suit, she claimed that he dropped it in frustration while attempting to threaten her and she was simply trying to avoid escalation. Not quite sure who's in the right here. He could have broken it, or she did. But despite everything I could find, while it's true that stuff was in fact broken, I'm not seeing any verdict that would suggest a full-on beating from anyone. A dropped trophy and some random shit on the floor, sure, but an assault? That onus would be on the accuser to prove, which they did not. Our investigators said that he was probably trying to get rid of her and take her condo and assets. Does your investigator have a degree in Netflix? Where the fuck did that come from? In light of this ingenious theory crafted out of thin air, I'm gonna go ahead and take a wild guess that your investigators are just you, and that you watch far too much CSI Miami. But before we unmask the vigilante Redditor, there's a few more claims we need to speed through. First off, the claim about Infiltration fabricating expense reports is shut down almost immediately. The FGC consultant for Razor, Markman, denied the accusation in the same thread, stating frankly that he did not commit fraud while sponsored. Despite claiming to have proof and that they were willing to talk, this was ultimately never discussed anywhere outside of their email to David Wu in July. They stated that Infiltration was booking and canceling hotels and flights and photoshopping receipts to Razor in order to reimburse himself for non-existent purchases. This evidence, among everything else, was accredited to the work of unnamed private investigators. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think even the best PIs have the legal jurisdiction or know-how to obtain first-hand email confirmations of bookings, screen recordings of someone's devices with private messages open, or personal email chains to sponsors like what was attached here. In fact, it wasn't even legal to consider yourself a private detective in Korea until 2020. This happened in 2018. Even then, they were still prohibited from collecting evidence in criminal and civil cases, banned from collecting evidence for cases under investigation, and from gathering information to prove cheating of a spouse in order to protect the privacy of citizens. They're mostly errand boys for missing children. If you're a Smash player, write that one down. That might come in handy. Bearing in mind that Bearing in mind that they would have had to violate almost every single restriction in Korean law to obtain this information, unless you hired a very well-connected and illegal detective agency, I don't think you hired a PI at all. You're either Infiltration's ex-wife or in direct contact with her. But we'll find that out soon enough. Revisiting the Reddit post, he also claims that after the first restraining order was lifted on November 3rd, Infiltration went to her house again, destroyed her stuff, and beat her again. He refers to this as the second assault charge. I actually have the summary order from case 10532 that he lists here as evidence, and it's just a damage to property case, not an assault charge like the last one. The citation only reflects a fine for when Infiltration hired a locksmith who dismantled her electronic lock to retrieve his belongings after the passcode was changed. This occurred mainly because she wouldn't allow him back into their apartment unless he agreed to be in a relationship with her and continued paying bills. According to those same text messages, she wouldn't be at home when he planned to arrive and warned him about forcing open the door. I don't know how he possibly managed to beat her when she wasn't even there, and as her attorney later stated, would have been at work by the time he returned with the locksmith at 5, but your guess is as good as mine. Before and after this event, his ex-wife continued to text and call him several times, allegedly visited outside of his parents' house, which he referred to as stalking.
오히려 김영리는 오후 7시경에 부모님 집에 멋대로 찾아오는 스토커 같은 모습을 보인 날이었습니다.
And repeatedly told him how much she missed and loved him, to which he replied, "Please stop calling me." That is, until they eventually met up around Christmas. Remember that little detail, because this will become very important later. Last but not least, Infiltration was accused of hiding his assets to avoid paying his criminal fines, and that he was attending a tournament to avoid the second trial. Never mind the fact that the Redditor already acknowledged his attorney would be there, and he isn't required to show up anyways. So, kind of pointless to throw in, but fuck it. Let's address it anyway. Alright, so this fine of $20,000 is based on literally nothing. Neither the assault charge nor the damage to property case comes even close to 20 million won. But if it were true that Infiltration was hiding $930 worth of assets under a different name to avoid paying his ex-wife, in the mediation record for their division of property case over their joint apartment, she was ordered to pay him 98 million won, or approximately 90 to 100,000 USD by February 28th, 2019. Would have just gone right back into his wallet anyways. Excuse my French, but who gives a shit? Our mystery man is really starting to lose me here. Between the lying about fraud, inaccurate fine payments, embellishing random details, and his somehow impossible acquisition of personal documents and records, there's either a Korean Batman roaming the streets, or we have ourselves an inside collaborator. Hey, what are you in for? The evidence, hold on, I don't want to sit on this fucking toilet anymore. The evidence that would unveil the elusive co-conspirator came from an unexpected source. 4 days after the infamous threat from criminal Sian-Woo Lee, someone reached out to an ex-girlfriend of Infiltration, who he broke up with in 2013, to hopefully strengthen the mounting case against him. A woman that 8 months prior, in early January, also received a DM from his ex-wife regarding an alleged affair. To fully understand the connection between the Redditor and our newly found concerned citizen, let's look at the last sentence of the Reddit post. This is still an ongoing process, and many people are eager to share what they know about Infiltration every day. Whoever wrote this was actively still looking for more. Sometimes at the cost of accuracy, truth, or in this case, their own anonymity. Did I say that right? Anonymity. Anonymity. 3 months after she was contacted, Infiltration's ex-girlfriend sent him a screenshot from Facebook Messenger. Hidden in plain sight was the man behind it all. The emails, threatening DMs alluding to their investigation, and the accounts responsible was none other than his acquaintance and ex-wife's cousin, Charlie O. Huh, that would make a lot of sense. Who else could it be? Charlie lived in California and wouldn't have to navigate the hellscape of Korean defamation laws. I live overseas and have all of the evidence. I will send the evidence directly to Panda Global. Not convinced yet? I don't blame you. Being a member of the FGC himself and family to the victim, there's an adequate level of investment to satisfy a motive, and the use of a proxy and VPN would clear his ex-wife of any legal culpability. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that it wasn't him. Unless he's just lying, how could he know that she planned to gather stories on Infiltration to build a case in 2018 for domestic violence and torture that, to my knowledge, doesn't even exist? How did the pseudonym criminal Infiltration know about the screen recordings his ex-wife took of Infiltration's phone during his Christmas visit in 2017? That's right. When he came over for the last time in December, she suspected him of having an affair, and the DM she sent his ex displayed her intimate knowledge of her findings only 2 weeks later. She also confessed to this invasive invasion of privacy during a police interrogation because she felt deceived into having relations with him after seeing the notification from another woman pop up on his phone. However, that doesn't quite explain why she chose to record other group chats like Korea FGC. Consequently, the verdict from the Seoul Southern District Court fined her 1 million won for the violation of privacy. But these screenshots were only submitted to a family court for their division of property mediation, which was a private and ongoing case. And as we already know, it would have been illegal for any so-called private investigator to retrieve this information. Meaning that the only way her screenshots could end up in a Panda Global manager's inbox is if she sent it, leaked it, or had an accomplice. If you look at the record from that case, she was being ordered to pay Infiltration around $100,000 for the apartment. Couple that with a slap on the wrist for his violence charge, the fact that she was now snooping around for more stories, and add a sprinkle of passion as the cherry on top, and you now have plenty of evidence to establish a clear motive. Which might also explain how some random Redditor gained access to Infiltration's private expense reports and contracts. Because according to her rebuttal in the defamation lawsuit, she was CC'd in most of his business deals and already had all of these documents on her own computer. So just to recap, in total, this completely anonymous person had private contracts, documents, and receipts, an audio recording of the domestic dispute that wouldn't be accessible through public case filings, and screenshots of Infiltration's phone. But the leaker wants us to believe that all of the information was gathered by illegal private investigators and her close friends, and that she had nothing to do with it. Call me crazy, but I kind of find that hard to believe. However, what really bothers me is the last line of Charlie's Facebook inquiry to Infiltration's ex-girlfriend. It reads, "A number of girls who were mistreated by him is willing to speak up." This was of course an attempt to convince her that she wasn't alone, but out of all the information to date, there's only one woman who's ever spoken out against Infiltration, that being his ex-wife. If there were more willing to speak up, then why haven't they 6 years later? Now, it's very possible they just got cold feet, or the more likely explanation is that in Charlie's desperate hunt to expose every whisper and rumor he could get his hands on, he yet again jumped the gun and presented a false pretense in order to persuade a testimony, hoping that the evidence would conveniently follow the accusation. The latter of which would really put the ethics of this investigation into question. Infiltration was already charged with a crime of violence and for destruction of property. Why would she be double dipping almost a year later after their separation and attempting to use other people's stories to do it? Since Charlie never posted an update on this alleged case and no news of it exists over half a decade later, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that this wasn't for a lawsuit at all. This was an attempt to use the momentum from the Reddit post to compile more stories against Infiltration, resulting in the perfect storm that would end his career. Unfortunately, much to their disappointment, they didn't find anything. So that was the end of it. Whoa there! Hold your horses, Captain Conclusions. This isn't to say that Infiltration is an innocent man. That's not my job. Obviously, the guy was charged with a crime. His verbal abuse and the physical struggle over his ex-wife's phone is well documented and deserves its fair share of scrutiny. But I believe that in this new age of information, a man should be condemned for what he's done, not by a construct of his peers' wishful thinking. And therein lies the real reason why I'm here. I know very well that the thrill of an investigation and personal biases can often blind one to objectivity, where rumor becomes fact, hearsay remains unquestioned, and excerpts are cherry-picked at whim. But the beauty of litigation is its tendency to cut through the bullshit and lay everything on the table, reminding us of the simple truth that people and the relationships between them are far more nuanced than we care to admit. And while the truth might not have been as sensational as Charlie had hoped, it ultimately achieved its goal. Infiltration sponsors had no choice but to drop him, as he was now labeled a wife beater and a liability in the same stroke, losing the comfy six-figure job that most could only ever dream of, and thus marking the beginning of his complete and total ban from every major event in the fighting game community. I actually ran out of time at the studio I was renting, and I did not have enough money for another hour. That shit's expensive. So for all intents and purposes, let's pretend that I'm still in the jail cell, and it looks really fucking cool. I know I said this would be the start of him being banned from every major event in the fighting game community, but since he agreed upon a hiatus with Capcom where he'd be removed from the Pro Tour for the rest of 2018 and all of 2019, Infiltration wasn't done just yet. The second strike came in a familiar package. Keep in mind that Infiltration wouldn't be officially banned by Capcom until June of 2022 for reasons we'll discuss later. But on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, he'd first have to respond to accusations of match fixing in his own tournament. In 2020, around the time he returned from his suspension, Infiltration moved his Twitch stream to a website called Africa TV, which is like the South Korean equivalent of Twitch.
들려드릴 내용인즉슨 제가 아프리카 TV 단독 송출만을 목적으로 이제 방송 플랫폼을 옮기게 됐습니다.
They were offering large sums of money to fund his tournaments if he chose to stream on their website. So with a new contract in hand and what seemed like a second chance, he set out to expand the reach of fighting games for the entire Korean community. With tournaments for games like Granblue Fantasy Versus and Street Fighter V having consistent prize pools, the KFGC looked like it was entering a new era of prosperity. So it's ironic that only when they decided to share their wealth with the less fortunate that everything came crashing down. As 2021 rolled around, Infiltration wanted to try his hand at running beginner-only tournaments. The Granblue tournament came and went like any other, and it almost seemed like Street Fighter would be no different. Cue the next morning when all hell breaks loose. The Redditor UO1K called into question the legitimacy of the winner of the Street Fighter beginner tournament. You see, this tournament was specifically capped off for Ultra Bronze ranked players and under, so others felt like the champion was a little too good to be true. He showed a clip of their advanced corner pressure from the tournament, taking rounds off an Ultimate Grandmaster in a casual lobby, public chats between Infiltration and the player where they discuss his apparent skill and how he'd need to rank up to fit in, and how he simply stopped playing ranked matches to stay within the required limit for entry, which some would refer to as smurfing. I honestly don't think this would have gotten as big as it did, had it not been for Infiltration immediately after going on a rant about his detractors following this criticism.
방구석에 앉아가지고 그냥 손가락 놀리는 새끼들이 격투 게임 판을 위해서 아무것도 하는 게 없는 새끼들이, 냉정하게 말해볼게. 내가 해외대회 나가서 졸라 열심히 하고 성적 내고 영향력 만들고 그래가지고 아프리카가 컨택해주고 이제서야 겨우 10년 넘게 고생해가지고 조금 커뮤니티에다가 뭔가 좀 할 수 있지 않을까 해서 노력하니까 그거를 개병신 새끼 지랄하네 프로게이머라는 새끼가 주작질하고 정치질하고 지들끼리만 놀고 이딴 소리를 해?
Like a mansion in California, the news spread like wildfire, and it didn't take long before Infiltration was now considered a match fixer who was rigging brackets for his inner circle. That's not exactly good for business. So Africa TV would sever their contract with him to avoid the PR headache, resulting in another loss and a long list of missed opportunities. Oh, how I'd love to just leave it there, end the video, and collect my paycheck. But unfortunately, that's not the full story. 3 years ago on R-Kappa, a user by the name GG Minu posted proof that they created the graphics for Infiltration's Sprout tournament, and claimed to have run the infamous bracket himself. They gave a complete timeline of events, starting from the successful Granblue tournament, all the way to the posting of the allegations. According to Minu, when the event ended, their community Discord was already being flooded with accusations of match fixing and favoritism. So while Infiltration was readying a response, he temporarily locked down the Discord. Player A was apparently a notably good Granblue player, but was entirely new to Street Fighter. He'd routinely hang out and participate in Infiltration's community Discord to gain advice and experience, but also played most of his matches in unranked lobbies. And even though he was new to the game, there's very valid reasons why either the rules should have been changed or he should not have been allowed to enter. It's why running a tournament based on arbitrary ranking systems is so difficult. However, in a different Redditor's thread, he said, "But this is not just smurfing, this is match fixing." To substantiate this claim, he shows an interaction of Infiltration talking to the player before the tournament and showing him the bracket. They both discuss how he's seeded to meet a fellow Discord member in the bracket. If you look at the breakdown of his reasoning, he includes the part, "modified, memory confusion, sorry." This is in response to another user who called out the fact that he was incorrectly stating that Infiltration changed the seeding after showing the player the bracket beforehand. The original poster replied, "Sorry, that was my memory confusion. Modified. Thank you." So how is this match fixing? All the evidence shows is that Infiltration talked about the bracket beforehand. There's no fucking evidence of any bracket manipulation. I think Infiltration noticed the potential player A had and wanted to avoid this exact scenario, but the strict adherence to the ranking system as opposed to a more common sense approach to what constitutes a beginner is honestly what fucked him over here. This wasn't like his close friend he was securing a payday for. Neither did he rearrange the bracket just just for him to win. But he absolutely could have taken the criticism for entry requirements a lot better and simply fixed it the next time instead of getting pissed off. The problem would have fixed itself naturally, considering player A wouldn't have been allowed to enter future events anyways according to the rules. This was like $400 split between 8 people. Let me put that into perspective real quick. First place got less than $200, second got just under 80, third received around 40, and everyone else basically won $15 to $20 gift cards. And if you're really losing your mind over like $195, what are we doing here? Of course it's not nothing, and sure, this isn't like an ideal scenario, and we can definitely criticize the execution. But you'd think Infiltration stole from a homeless shelter the way these people talk about it. It was a sponsor-funded event, and the money would have gone to some random guy who just bought Street Fighter and would never enter again. But if you're one of the few unlucky people who never recovered from this financial opportunity 4 years later, you could always enter Squid Game. Just kidding. What I meant to say was, Player A and Infiltration have both issued an apology for how things ended in a recent upload to his YouTube channel.
안녕하세요. 저는 초보자 토너먼트 당시 우승했던 A라고 합니다. 제가 3년 전에 디스코드의 채널에 남긴 경솔한 발언으로 인해 많은 분들을 오해하게 만들었습니다. 늦었지만 지금이라도 여러분들에게 오해를 불러일으킨 점 진심으로 사과드립니다.
이처럼 A는 당시의 상황에 대해서 자신이 실수한 점을 사과하고 있습니다. 그리고 이제는 제 차례입니다. 제가 미숙했고 감정적인 모습을 보였고 후속 대처 또한 좋지 않았습니다. 만약 여러분들이 저의 사과를 받아주시지 않더라도 겸허하게 받아들이겠습니다. 앞으로 같은 실수를 반복하지 않는 행동으로 보여드리도록 하겠습니다. 진심으로 죄송합니다.
If it was even like 500 for first place, I'd probably care a lot more. I think an apology is sufficient for this. I really don't see this being a big issue. Oh boy. I'm probably gonna get hit with this one too after that Squid Game joke, but thankfully, I'm not going pro anytime soon. This entire section can be summed up in a clip, so I'm just gonna show you what he said.
So, I can say that N-word, I can say the F-word to you because we are friends, man. Because I'm Asian, this is racist things, but if you are best friend, if you are my FGC friend, we can talk about this. We can say this. If you are black, I can say you N-word. Man, you sucks. And you can say me, oh, motherfucker, you eat rice? You eat rice? You eat kimchi every day?
Yeah, I censored it. You want to hear it yourself? Go fucking look it up. I'm trying to get paid, dude. So you're telling me the guy from South Korea who speaks English as a second language and literally can't even talk to me without an interpreter present.
We have the interview that you guys have been waiting for. I am joined with Infiltration and our interpreter, Mr. Burnout Fighter.
I am here with Infiltration and Burnout Fighter, who is going to translate. Yay.
To the audience that's listening, we also have his translator here, Will, and I'm just grateful to have both of you guys here.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Explained the non-derogatory use of slurs in a casual setting among friends. And I, as a fellow African myself, am supposed to be upset.
Can he say the N-word? No. What? Why would he even feel comfortable with saying the N-word in front of hundreds of people live on Twitch?
I am too tired and too annoyed. But anyways, here's a video for those who care of Infiltration saying the N-word. Peace and take care. Say what you want to say in the comments. I don't care.
However, I think treating the N-word like Voldemort is a very US-centric and silly concept that doesn't actually help anyone. If anything, being this unreasonable is going to make people more racist.
Hey, did you just say the N-word? I'm gonna violently assault you now.
Wow, racism cured. Imagine that. Feel free to call me a derogatory slur in response to that, which is not ironic in the slightest.
Peace and take care. Say what you want to say in the comments. I don't care.
Social commentary and memes aside, a lot of people wrongfully attribute Infiltration's ban from EVO, CEO, Combo Breaker, etc. to this Twitch stream. It probably didn't help, and did get him a short ban on Twitch, but it actually happened right after he posted a twitlonger discussing how he was already being rejected and offered a refund for tournaments.
If they care my 2018 cases, why EVO and other organizers, why they allowed my enter at EVO 2019? Why? This is not fair.
One of his major concerns was the fact that he was never informed of the specific reason for his ban, and they only linked the code of conduct page with the insinuation that some infraction must have taken place anywhere between 2019, when he last attended EVO, and the current day. My money would be on the match-fixing story from earlier, but who's to say for sure? Knowing the esports scene, it could even be as simple as wanting to avoid bad PR following the mass panic from the 2020 Me Too wave of allegations. As far as Capcom, it would almost look like an endorsement of Infiltration if they didn't fall in line with the ban wave. But you could argue him saying the N-word was the perfect scapegoat to enact their agreement from 2018, and finally issue him that long-awaited lifetime ban. Why else would their official statement only come 2 weeks after the public outrage for separate bans and for the alleged racism? I've never been much of a fan when it comes to a lack of transparency. After all, punishments are meant to set a precedent and curb future undesired behavior. How can you possibly do that if we need to sit here and play a guessing game just to figure out what resulted in Infiltration's lifetime ban from the FGC? Was it the domestic violence case? That can't be right. He still went to multiple major events and received a significant streaming contract with Africa TV. Was it the alleged bracket rigging? I mean, he definitely pissed off a lot of people, so it's possible. Or was it because he said the N-word? 2 years prior, a player known as Ceroblast received a ban for the 2020 season after a clip resurfaced of them using the N-word multiple times. If the intent doesn't matter, which it hardly ever does, I think it's safe to say that, albeit a stupid decision, this was most likely the cause of Infiltration's official Capcom ban. There's another, more recent incident involving tweets about a specific demographic. I'm not gonna say what race, what people, and what videos got posted. We know I can't say that. But at this point in the story, he's already banned for life, so I don't really feel like getting into it for obvious reasons. If you're curious, go look it up. In conclusion, between the criminal charges, alleged bracket rigging, and everyone's favorite letter of the alphabet, the case of Infiltration is a complicated one. With a mountain of opinions, summaries, threads, and documentation, it can at times be difficult to follow. People nowadays would rather act first, research second. For instance, at the start I showed you every single detail in the case with Infiltration's ex-wife. Nowhere is there anything even close to an accusation of rape, yet his champion placement on promotional EVO material in 2024 was vandalized nonetheless. You can criticize, protest, and expose whoever you want, but you don't need to lie to do it. Sensationalism is often the product of online discourse. Instead of simply citing a medical report or the verdict, I'm now forced to read the ramblings of a Reddit vigilante and how it was all a secret plot to kill her and seize all her assets. And his ex-wife wanted to drop the case and get back together days later, but instead, he told her how much he hated her, sued her for $100,000, pissed her off in December when he visited and she suspected him of two-timing, and then she leaked his private information and court documents to major organizations and sponsors. To be clear, again, I don't think this is at all how you should treat a woman or an argument in general, regardless of how disillusioned or resentful you become during a divorce. But contacting someone's exes for a fake lawsuit, leaking their receipts to accuse them of non-existent fraud, and screen recording their phone to engineer a cheating scandal isn't exactly exemplary behavior either. He served the agreed-upon 2-year ban with Capcom, and that was it. Or at least it should have been, had he not been an idiot on stream by pissing everyone off who was upset at the beginner tournament and saying the N-word. Never a good idea if you want job security. Oh, what's this? Oh, well, I'll be. Looks like my Patreon money came in. I guess I can't afford that studio. I'll be right back. I can give you all the facts. I can say this is stupid. He served his time for a case that happened 7 years ago. Let him play the damn game. But they're never gonna unban him. That's not how this works anymore. You can finish a prison sentence faster than an esports ban these days. But what I can do is give you something far more important than any game or competition. And that's the truth. Some people thought I'd just swoop in, prove Infiltration is innocent, and all would be right with the world. But life can be as disappointing as it is great. But as long as we continue to value truth, we may yet find our way out of here.
All right. Time's up.
Wait, what?
Your sentence. It's up. You're free to go.
But I, stabbed and killed 3 people.
Yeah. This is the UK. You're a free man, detective.
But what about my Smash ban?
Oh, that? That's forever.
Are you serious?
Yeah. You made, a lot of people uncomfortable. We can't have that.
Damn. Can I at least have a goodbye kiss?
Why not?
Until next time. John, can you come over here? Can you just like choke me real quick?
Yes, sir.
Fuck, I forgot to bring the Batman costume. That's what I forgot.
Damn it.
Whatever. That joke is gone. 3 months after she was contacted, Infiltration's ex-girlfriend sent him a screenshot from Facebook Messenger. God damn it. Alright, stop fiddling with the fucking cuffs. Put him down. Go fucking put him down. You Redditor. Can you go check with? Yeah, I hear music through the wall. Is that the next door guy? I can hear music through the wall.
Yeah, it's next door. I'm sorry.
Fuck! Yeah, I'm gonna have the noise cancel. How bad is it? How bad can you pick it up?